Coming up today on the Locked On Hornets podcast, is LaMelo Ball a shoo-in for the All-Star game? Where do the Hornets rank in terms of future assets? And can the Hornets get a win before their West Coast road trip? That's all today on a solo episode of Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. Your favorite podcast, Locked On Hornets, now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Hornets daily newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free right now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets team newsletter. Plus, this episode, it's brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We got some good news in the Hornets world. At least you would think it would be good news, but everything is polarizing. Everybody is divided right now in our Hornets world. So maybe it doesn't hit as good news for everybody, but it should be. It should be nothing but positivity with the news that we get, having LaMelo Ball being the Eastern Conference leader among guards in terms of all-star votes. The fan voting results, they are in the first go-around, and LaMelo is number one among all Eastern Conference guards with 950,000 votes, 947,000 to be exact. Donovan Mitchell has 718,000. Damian Lillard, 704,000. I'll just go ahead and finish out the top five. Jalen Brunson, 477,000. Trae Young, 353. Really, those numbers put it in perspective exactly where LaMelo is right now. Like the fact that LaMelo is at 947,000 votes, it shows you just how popular he is. Yet, when you have these inside the NBA shows like Charles Barkley just being disgusted as soon as he sees that graphic with LaMelo right at the top of that list, and then you have other people that are tweeting about LaMelo, I can't believe these kids are voting him as the number one guard in all the Eastern Conference. Man, look, I just don't know why we have to have such the visceral reaction to the results. Because LaMelo set the foundation with his first 18 games before he got hurt. Man, we talked about this. The primacy bias, it's real. Whether it should be included as much as it is or not, I will say the foundation LaMelo set for himself with the first 18 games that he played before he got hurt, I knew that was going to go a long way. And plus, LaMelo does deserve a lot of these votes. LaMelo was averaging 31 points per game, 5 rebounds per contest, to go along with 7 assists, 36% from three, 43% from the field, 31 points per game. Those are monster numbers. Those are ridiculous. They've come down a little bit since then. And here we are doing the LaMelo can't get into a rhythm because he's out. He's only played 22 games. That's as much as he played last year, by the way. So some of the other guys directly below LaMelo in the fan voting results for round one, Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, those guys have played about 10 more games or so. Okay, fine. But even still, LaMelo's played enough and has had enough of an all-star impact now that it's warranted for him to be somewhere towards the top. And so what if it's number one? Like what you've seen from him, it's been ridiculous in terms of just the offensive outpour. If you look at the very fabric of the All-Star game, everything about it screams Showtime. And that's what LaMelo is. Showtime as soon as he takes the court. Every single game. So if this is who LaMelo is as a player, if that is what is in the very fabric of the All-Star game, then it makes sense that he would be getting all of these votes. I want you guys to go back to the time when you were a kid. If you're my age, if you were a kid in the mid-2000s, remember even the early 2000s, I should say. Remember Vince Carter? Remember how he would be the leading votes getter for every single year. There were 3 years in a row Vince Carter was the leading vote getter, including another one in 2004. But everybody knows Vince Carter wasn't the best player in the NBA. Yet me, little Walker male, at about 10 years old, he'd go to NBA.com and he'd get the ballots at the games when you would go live, and he would punch the hole out. First things first, Vince Carter, bam, North Carolina ties, the high flying dunks, one of the best dunkers of all time. It's Showtime, and I'm going to vote him into the All-Star game. You know why? Because he was exciting as hell, but also he deserved it. He deserved it. But he's not better than Kobe. He's not better than Shaq. And yet it was okay to vote Vince Carter in the All-Star game and have him be the leading vote getter. It wasn't a big deal. It doesn't have to be a big deal that LaMelo is the leading vote getter. Look, do I think Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell, who are second and fourth, Donovan second, Jalen is fourth among Eastern Conference guards, do I think they're better players right now? I do. But one guy is the best player on one of the best teams. Both of them are, right? Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, those guys are going to be playing postseason basketball. But when you get these reactions from Charles Barkley, they act like LaMelo should be so far down the list. Man, look, Damian Lillard, Trae Young, Tyrese Maxey, LaMelo can be ahead of those guys. Are you kidding me? LaMelo absolutely deserves to be no less than third on this list. If you wanted to argue Donovan and Jalen should be ahead of him, okay, fine. But LaMelo should not be below third on this list, and yet people act like he shouldn't even be in the top 10. I'm sorry. We got Jordan Poole at number 8. No, I'm good. Tyler Hero at number 9, who has been an excellent shooter. And I don't want to do the hater thing with some of these other guys, but that's exactly what we're seeing against LaMelo. When you have these, oh my God, reactions, it just doesn't make sense to me. And the last point I'll make, man, with the fan voting, do you want it or not? Isn't this what we're supposed to do? We're supposed to ask the fan opinions in this portion of the All-Star game. And it's not just going to be the fan voting that decides who gets in the All-Star game or not. We know how it is. You're going to have the coach breakdown. You're going to have writers voting on this too. So it's okay to let the fans speak out on who they want in. And if LaMelo doesn't get into the All-Star game, it would be a snub. I said last point, this is my real last point. People have gone with the LaMelo isn't a winning basketball player narrative for quite some time. I've always pushed back against it. People contradict themselves. Okay, he's too injury prone. He's not a winning basketball player. Well, okay, which one is it? Because the Hornets start losing dramatically when LaMelo isn't out there on the court. But it's still his fault when he's not out there on the court. Like, that's the issue I have. If you have an issue with his defense, 100%, man, you got a lot of film to work with. Cool, okay? You got a lot. If you don't like his shot selection, you got a lot of film to work with. We can quibble about why the shot selection, the shot diet is the way it is with LaMelo, but you got a lot of film to work with. Cool. But then when you just start talking about he's not a winning player, and then you point to the Hornets record, but then you also say he's injury prone, well, okay, he's not playing in those games that they're losing once we get to a dramatic role. Man, look at this year. When did the Hornets start losing at a dramatic level? It was when LaMelo goes out. They've won one game since LaMelo suffered that initial injury. Now, him coming back, yeah, you'd like for him not to miss 15 threes against Washington. That's true. If we go individual game-by-game basis, it's true that I don't want him going 3 of 18 from distance against the Wizards. No doubt about it. Inefficient night from deep, and that stuff matters. But now, again, we're getting into the rhythm stuff. Man, if he can just stay out there for, 40 games at a time, I think a lot of that stuff works itself out. But here he is coming back in and out, and now he's resting again. So it's unfortunate. It's Locked On Hornets. Appreciate you listening to us and making us your first listen. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast, we got to move from LaMelo Ball to the draft asset ranking. We'll get to that in just a moment here on Locked On Hornets. Before we get to Bobby Marks' draft asset ranking, I want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling which players will score a touchdown, how many points teams will score. There's so many things to bet on, so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Plenty more Locked On Hornets here to come in the next segment on the Locked On Podcast Network. Been outstanding when he's been out there on the court. But what about the future assets? Well, Bobby Marks of ESPN.com, he ranked all of the teams and where they rank among the things they might be able to do in the future. And how about this? The Hornets ranked pretty high. Number 6 on the future asset list. And here's what he writes. Charlotte's acquired 2 first-round picks and 8 second-rounders since January of 2024. So really, in a calendar year's worth of time, they have acquired quite a bit of assets, 10 picks, 2 first-round picks, and 8 second-rounders. Mitch Kupchak may be gone in spirit, or he may be gone literally, but in spirit, he is still in that building somewhere, and Jeff Peterson has adopted the mold of valuing second-round selections. The first of the first-round picks that they acquired at the beginning of the calendar year, it comes from Miami, and that could become unprotected in 2028, which is a big deal. We talked about it at the time. If they miss the playoffs, the Hornets have a top 2 protected first in 2027 with the Mavs, but San Antonio a top 14 protected first in this upcoming NBA draft. But the beautiful thing is now if Charlotte misses the playoffs, then they will end the whole first round pick thing going to San Antonio, and that will convey into a second in 2026 and 2027. So what I like about this, one, of course, it decreases in value. So you're giving something up less valuable to San Antonio. That's cleared away the best part of this conveying into a couple second rounders. But the other thing is, man, like now we don't have to just worry about the whole, do we win? Do we not? You just get rid of it. It's finally over. The Kai Jones trading up to go get him. Clearly it didn't work out. I've always said, I know people were excited that there was so much protection on that first round pick you gave up to go get Kai Jones. The problem is now you couldn't use it in trades for players that you might want to go after at the trade deadline because you didn't have any control over it. So when you're in the Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes, and the Hornets were legitimately a part of being interested in acquiring Donovan Mitchell, now you don't have a shot in competing with a New York team, a Cleveland team that has all these other assets because they have control of all their picks. The Hornets don't anymore. And it's because you gave it up for Kai. But even so, like, great, there's a lot of protection on it, but now you don't have control over it. Anyways, I'm excited for that to end. And I think what this illustrates too, the fact that the Hornets are number 6 on this list, there are a lot of avenues that the Hornets can roll with now, right? Like, they're only going to acquire more. The way this season is going, don't you think that they're going to be sellers at the deadline? They are out of it in terms of competing for a playoff spot. The play-in spot, I mean, it doesn't look like they're going to get there. We talked about this 10-game stretch being a defining stretch of the season. I was hoping they'd go 5-5, 6-4 if they were feeling froggy. Nope, they're going to lose every single game. It's that brutal. They've lost to Washington twice. They've lost to Philadelphia twice. They lose to Houston. They lose to Oklahoma City, Chicago. Some of these games are forgivable given how good the opposition is, and some of them aren't, like Washington specifically. You can't lose both of those games. If you lose to Detroit and Cleveland, Detroit, the real bad one here, because Cleveland a real good basketball team, but you've beaten the Pistons twice already. Even if it is on the road, that game is tonight. If you lose that game, I mean, then it doesn't get any easier. Like, they got a West Coast road trip coming up. Phoenix, LA, both games, the Lakers, the Clippers, that's going to be January 9th to January 11th. They have 2 games against Phoenix before you even get to January 15th. Then you finish up with Utah, go back to the Midwest to Chicago before you come back home against Dallas. It gets rough. You guys get the idea. So while we're diving into the schedule and what it looks like, my point is they're going to acquire more assets, in my opinion. They're going to make some trades at the deadline. That's the thing that makes the most sense to set this team up for a better future. Now, how crazy are they getting? I don't know. I don't think they're going to trade LaMelo or Brandon Miller. Those guys are going to be key parts of this team. I think Mark Williams, especially with the way that he played against Chicago, you're not giving up on Mark Williams. I don't think he would get enough in return. So it just makes sense for all parties for Mark to stay here in Charlotte. But everybody else, yeah, I think everybody else would be on the table. That's how poorly this season has gone. Tijan Salon would be another guy you're probably keeping. He's not untouchable, but he's a rookie. You drafted him to be a project. It only makes sense to see that project a little further down the road than just the first 30 games of his NBA career. So I don't think they're going to be trading Salon either. You get the idea. A lot of players, more players than not, could be had in a deal that the Hornets deem fit. So they're only going to add to this list, and then you're going to move up in top 5, top 4, top 3, possibly, depending on how many assets they get in return. And now, look, even at top 6, you already really like where they rank at this point. But now you start to get into one of the teams everybody is calling because they want Miles Bridges to get somebody that can attack downhill. Maybe they want Josh Green because they value his defense and there's still enough value there in the corner shot that they feel like, with better offenses, Josh Green might be better, right? The teams' egos, that can allow them to think that way. Maybe you can get a couple of picks for some of these ancillary pieces on a team that's not going to go to the playoffs and is struggling to make the play-in right now. Still to come here on the Locked On Hornets podcast. I just went through the schedule that they have, and we got to figure out exactly where they can get that win. Is it tonight against Detroit, or can they get a win at some point on the road going out west? And we got to talk about the injury situation because, it's the Hornets, which means there are plenty of injuries to discuss to key players on the squad. That's all still to come here on Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time? I love going to live events. Whether it's sports, music, theater, comedy, doesn't really matter. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert last year. The energy, the excitement, it's unforgettable. The games are fantastic to go to as well. So now Game Time, they've made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets anymore. Recently, I was just looking for tickets to an upcoming event. This was for a Christmas present. I was using the Game Time app, and with Game Time Picks, you could find amazing deals and could even see the view from your seat before buying, which I love. The super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. I lied. That's my favorite part. I hate being surprised with more money I have to spend at the end of the transaction. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, Locked On NBA, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. More Locked On Hornets ahead. So now we got to figure out, where is the win coming? We need the win just for the feel-good vibes, man. I want the high draft pick. I know people are all about Tank City at this moment in time, but I still want the vibes. I tweeted it out against Chicago when they go to overtime. They needed some help with a couple of Vooch missed free throws that got you free Chick-fil-A and got you free basketball. So a big thank you to Vooch for the Christmas gift. The thing is, they ended up not winning because the Bulls pulled away in overtime. I tweeted it out. I really want this win. I just wanted something to feel good about. I wanted a win to cap off what I thought was an excellent Mark Williams performance, so we could feel good about someone that we haven't seen give you that type of performance in quite some time, because the dude just hasn't been playing basketball all that much with all of the injuries that he's accumulated. So now, what kind of other injuries are the Hornets suffering? Well, PR, we got to follow the account that really just gives you a whole bunch of bad news. And the injury report for this game tonight against Detroit LaMelo with the left ankle and the right wrist, Daquan Jeffries with right adductor tightness, Cody Martin with the left knee, and Brandon Miller with the left ankle. They're all questionable. So I think we're moving in the right direction. We saw doubtful designations for a lot of those guys in the last game against Chicago. Now we're moving up to questionable. We'll see. Hopefully LaMelo, Brandon Miller, everybody suits up, but we'll see. And Grant Williams will continue to be out the rest of the year. Trey Mann, disc irritation. He's going to be out, and we need to discuss this because they tweeted out about Trey Mann just a few days ago that because of that disc irritation, they're going to reevaluate him in a couple of weeks worth of time. And so here's the update on December 30th. It's more than a couple days ago. Trey Mann continues rehabilitation for disc irritation, and he's increased the intensity of his on-court work and individual workouts. He'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks. Okay, yeah, the 2-week reevaluation thing, that's a tough timeline because we got this with Mark Williams at the beginning of the season, really before the season started. And then it was longer than 2 weeks before he would eventually return. I think we got this with LaMelo too. And it took a little bit longer for LaMelo to return than what we were all hoping for. The 2-week evaluation thing, it's never great. And now Trey is almost in this Gordon Hayward territory, not with the volume of injuries. I just want to get that out of the way. But he's in the Gordon Hayward territory in the sense that he's not back by the initial timeline. I think that's a little worrisome for me. Where remember, when Gordon would be out, it would be, hey, he might be back in a couple weeks. He might be back in a month. And then it would be actually a lot longer before he would return. This Trey Mann thing, yeah, and here we are with 2 weeks, and now he's not returning. He's going to be evaluated even further. We're talking about well over a month's worth of time of Trey Mann missing some basketball. And we know how great he was. Like the exciting things that happened with this squad, right? LaMelo playing like an all-star. He was going to get all NBA votes too with the way he was playing. Trey Mann, Trey I, all of the nicknames that came his way because he looked like Allen Iverson. Now he's gone. Okay, so there was something real fun that was taken away from us. Grant Williams did a lot of little things to help this basketball team. He was taken away from us for the season. So a lot of these little things are taken away. And I think that's what's made this season so frustrating. Where can they get the win? Man, look, I'm really hoping it can come against Detroit. They're going to need the reinforcements, even if it is on the road. I'm hoping this is a game where LaMelo Ball can suit up despite the questionable designation. I'm hoping Brandon Miller and LaMelo can play on the court at the same time. And I'm hoping because it's Detroit and the Hornets have had some luck against them, the crazy games that go down to the wire, and I mean the very end of the wire, the Hornets still get the dubs against those guys. So maybe you get some good vibes here. Maybe LaMelo can throw up a couple shots. Maybe Brandon Miller can come in and produce right away. But it goes back to what Rod Morrow was discussing in our last episode of Locked On Hornets. Like, look, this is the task at hand. It's unfair to ask these guys off of injuries to just come in and then shoot 50% from the field, 40% from three, and then go over 20 points between the both of them. LaMelo get to his 30-point per game average. It is unfair, yet that's the task at hand if you want to win ball games. There's just not enough margin for error. You don't have a lot of cushion. With all those guys playing on the court at the same time, you're hoping that they can produce a W. Detroit tonight, that's going to be your easiest opportunity. The other games, again, I'll go over them once more. Cleveland, Sunday. Phoenix at home on January 7th. And then you have the 5-game road stretch. Lakers, Clippers, Phoenix, Utah, Chicago, before you're back at home against Dallas. Then you have a long homestand, a long homestand, but you got to go out on the West Coast for a little bit before you come back at home. Hopefully it happens against Detroit, where the Hornets have had some luck. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. Again, we're free and available anywhere you get your pods, and that includes YouTube. Last episode of the week, folks. Looks like we're going to be back on regularly scheduled programming with Doug Branson being back on Monday. And then we'll be doing the everyday thing. No more holidays. This is the time when you were a kid and you'd get like a little bit of holiday/seasonal depression because you had a couple of months to wait before you got to spring break. That's where we are right now. We're in that stretch. But it's good news for you because there's more Locked On Hornets content. And if you want more, then go to Doug Branson's Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. You can also text him via his subtext information you can find there, again, on everyhornetsboxscore.com. And then listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll be back with you on Monday. Doug is back, baby. We'll see you then.
You are Locked On Hornets,